To many, when you mention the name Marco Reus, loyalty is the first word that comes to mind. Some people will say, what could have been if not for the injuries? Others might think of all of those who have come and gone in his time at Dortmund. To me, he represents the beauty of the struggle. It really is all of those things together and more. And I feel as though his career is really one that is a reflection of life. Reus embodies so many traits within and beyond football that I wish and hope to embody myself. And as he's truly getting his flowers and the support of much of the world in this final Champions League run, let's take a moment to look back at the career of my favorite player of all time. This is Beauty in the Struggle, a Reus retrospective. Lost within the era of numbers and stats, a time of Messi and Ronaldo dominating Europe is a story of perseverance. Don't get it twisted, despite a career known for excruciating injuries, Reus has still managed to accrue quite the numbers himself. He sits at 4th all-time in career appearances for Borussia Dortmund at 428, and to go along with those appearances, he sits at 2nd in the club's history for goals at 170, just 7 away from 1st. He leads the club all-time in assists at 131, a little over 40 more than the next closest player. He's the all-time leader for appearances, goals, and assists in the Champions League as well for the club. 301 goal involvements in 428 games altogether. Not too bad. He was named German Footballer of the Year twice and Bundesliga Player of the Season on 3 occasions. Despite all these accomplishments, the trophy cabinet isn't the biggest. He has just 5 to his name, 3 DFB Super Cups, and 2 DFB Pokals. So many just escaped him as well, as he has lost in a Champions League final, multiple Pokal finals, and 2 near misses in the Bundesliga. But some of these are stories for later. This is just a brief glance into what Reus has achieved, something to show his legend status for the club, and to provide a little more perspective to those who haven't closely followed his career. When talking about Marco Reus's rise, I think most will go to reference his early time under Klopp at Dortmund, and for Bundesliga fans, probably his time at Gladbach. There was another step before that many don't know about. Reus would join the Dortmund youth ranks in 1996 and would stay there until 2006, at which point he would not get a senior club opportunity as the club felt that his body was too fragile for top-flight football, and so he chose to leave in order to find playing time somewhere else. Reus would have to work his way up from the bottom, finding himself a free transfer to Rot-Weiß Ahlen, a club in the Regionalliga Nord. Hopefully the German's alright there. The German 3rd tier at the time. He would start in the club's academy, playing for it in the U19 Bundesliga, and would earn himself 5 showings in the club's 2nd team, the German 4th tier, even scoring in his debut for them. A wild note in this story is that he actually played with future teammate Kevin Grosskreutz in that game, and the two would eventually live together at the club, as both had similar backgrounds coming from the Dortmund Youth Academy, being released, and in a sense, building for the future. In his next season, he would evenly split time between the club's U19 side and the club's first team. Granted, many of the first team appearances were late substitutions. Rot-Weiß Ahlen would win the league in that season and secure promotion to the Zwei Bundesliga, the 2nd Bundesliga, the 2nd tier of German football. At the age of 19, in the 2008-2009 season, Reus would start 28 appearances, scoring 4 goals and 3 assists. It might not seem like much, but his performances would earn him $1 million move to Bundesliga side Borussia Mönchengladbach. He would spend 3 years at Gladbach, scoring 41 goals and creating 28 assists in 109 appearances. He would go cap off his time there by winning the Bundesliga Player of the Year in 2012, scoring 21 goals and 37 appearances in all competitions for Gladbach, in a season where they finished 4th too. I think this time away from home was a very important and overlooked part of Reus's career. The first of many strikings of adversity in the cruelness of life. Not being able to achieve what he wanted, he went out and created his own path to find it. We don't always get or achieve what we want initially. Sometimes we have to take a step back and work on things from afar, and it will make what you're working towards all the more worthwhile in the long run. This is even an aspect of life that I've struggled with this year. But reflecting on Reus's career, I feel as though I can understand and appreciate it better. It wouldn't be the first time that he would show that with hard work you can find your way back. Reus carved his own path, and after 6 years away, he would finally find his way back home, earning a $17 million move to Borussia Dortmund for the 2012-13 season. And this would be a big one for him. Joining Klopp's Dortmund side with the likes of Robert Lewandowski and Mario Götze, he would quickly get a chance at a trophy in his first game in the DFB Super Cup against Bayern Munich, but Dortmund would fall 2-1. He would fit right in, scoring 14 goals and assisting 11 in the 32 Bundesliga games that season, which brings us to quite a notable footnote in his story, Dortmund's Champions League campaign that season. Dortmund would be drawn into the group of death featuring Real Madrid, Manchester City, and Ajax. Reus would start all 6 group stage games, scoring 3 goals in total. His first in an away draw to City, where he intercepted a lazy pass at the back of City's defense and blazed forward, blasting a shot into goal that Joe Hart could just get a hand on but not save. Scoring in another away draw, this time to Real Madrid, Reus would open the scoring, receiving the ball on a run into the box and rocketing a shot past Iker Casillas. Finally scoring the opener in an away game at Ajax, Götze found him on a diagonal run into the box, and he slotted it through the keeper's legs from about 6 yards out. They were all crucial goals which would help Dortmund top their group. They would draw Shakhtar Donetsk, and Reus would play the full 90 for both legs, seeing a 2-2 draw and a 3-0 win to push them into the quarterfinals. The quarterfinals would lead to a memory long living in the heads of Dortmund fans. The first leg in Spain played out to a goalless draw, leaving Dortmund work to do in the home leg. Reus would assist a Lewandowski equalizer with a beautiful backheel flick to tie it at 1 going into halftime of the home leg. But Dortmund would find themselves down 1-2 in the 90th minute. In the 91st minute, Hummels played a long ball into the box, finding Subotic. He would square it in the middle of the box, finding Santana, whose shot on an open goal got deflected and would land at Reus's feet. He scored the equalizer in the 91st minute, but this was in the away goals era, so Dortmund would need one more. And 2 minutes later, a cross sent into the box would bounce off of 4 or 5 players, landing at Santana's feet, standing directly in front of goal. He would tap it in to give Dortmund the winner at the death. An amazing memory for Dortmund fans that lives on to this day. Dortmund would find a familiar foe in the semifinals, being drawn against Real Madrid. In the first leg at home, Reus would assist Lewandowski's second of 4 goals, the ball being played to him sitting just outside the box. He would hit it on the volley, and the ball would find Lewandowski directly at the feet, behind 2 Madrid defenders, turning and placing it into the back of the net. Reus would also draw a penalty for Lewandowski's third goal as well. The 4-1 win would propel them into the final after holding on in the second leg to a 4-3 aggregate. They would play Bayern Munich in the final at Wembley. Reus would draw a penalty for Dortmund in the second half, in which Gundogan would score, tying the game. One could even argue that on a yellow, Dante should have been sent off for that foul, but it's the past. It was a very intense game, back and forth, but Iron Robin would ultimately find a winner in the 89th minute, ending Dortmund's amazing run to the final. This is what really sets the stage for his final game as a Borussia Dortmund player, a final shot at redemption. As he plays in the final 11 years later on the same ground in Wembley, we were so close to it being truly poetic and having Bayern Munich as the opponent in the final, but a couple late Madrid moments kept that from happening, and this would be the first of many so close but so far moments for Reus when it came to trophies. The 2013-14 season would be a memorable one for Reus, for both good and bad. He would see 45 goal contributions in 44 appearances and be named Bundesliga Player of the Season. Dortmund would get some quick revenge in the 2013-14 Super Cup, where Reus would score the first and last in a 4-2 win and provide him with his first trophy with the club. But that trophy doesn't quite compare to the Meisterschale, the Champions League, or the Pokal. Dortmund would finish second again in the Bundesliga, nearly 20 points off of Bayern, and later that season they would make it to the DFB Pokal final, but with some weird circumstances, playing against former teammate Mario Götze and it being Robert Lewandowski's final Dortmund game before transferring to Bayern Munich himself, as the score sat at 0-0 at 90 minutes, but extra time goals from Müller and Robben would see a 2-0 Bayern win, thus continuing the trend of coming so close. He was in great form for a World Cup year, and even scored 5 goals and had 3 assists in 6 World Cup qualifying matches for Germany. He was named to the 2014 World Cup roster for Germany, but ultimately had to pull out of the squad after tearing a ligament in his ankle in a 6-1 warm-up match against Armenia, within a month of the tournament. In a year where Germany would go on to win the tournament without him, it would be an absolutely brutal blow. Things wouldn't get too much better in the 2014-15 season for Reus and Dortmund. He'd miss the DFB Super Cup to start the season, which Dortmund would win 2-0, and technically gave him his second trophy with the club. But that would be the best of that season. This season would be a low point for Dortmund, as they would find themselves in danger in the relegation playoff spot at the half point of the season, even reaching the bottom spot of the league at one point. The team did rally and finished 7th that season, climbing 11 spots in the table over the second half of the season. The club also made it to the Pokal final, but once again lost, this time to Kevin De Bruyne's Wolfsburg. I think the most shocking aspect of all of this, and a true testament to Reus's loyalty, is that during the season, while in the relegation zone, Reus signed a 5-year contract extension in which he called it a decision for life. I think when most people reference Reus and his loyalty, they think of the long tenure at Dortmund, or that it was his boyhood club. Whenever I think of his loyalty being mentioned, this contract extension is what always comes to mind. This era of his career, 2011 to 2015, was where he was wanted most by other clubs, but he could never be tempted. He had the who's who of interested clubs: Bayern Munich, Manchester United, Barcelona, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, PSG, Chelsea, Real Madrid, Tottenham, and we've even seen so many of his teammates come and go over the years. Robert Lewandowski, Mario Götze, and even later Mats Hummels would find their way over to Bayern Munich, although the latter two would come back. Ousmane Dembele moving on to Barcelona, several moving off to the Premier League, Gundogan and Haaland leaving to Man City, Aubameyang forcing a move away to Arsenal, Christian Pulisic to Chelsea, Jadon Sancho to Manchester United. Most recently, his future opponent Jude Bellingham moved on to Real Madrid. I think it shows so much about who he is to stay and weather the storm and to fight for a club and the home that he loves, rather than take the opportunities of money, trophies, and success elsewhere. I think in this case it shows that loyalty was a decision. He chose to remain even when it was hard. I'm not saying the others were wrong for their decisions either, but I think it speaks to Reus's loyalty. And I think that it also shows the change in football over the years and how players of Reus's mentality are fading. The big money moves of players is ever increasing. And even in losing his teammates to other clubs, the bonds he forms with them doesn't end. You can see with Lewandowski every time they play against each other, hitting the handshake, it's all love between the two. And I think that this is another example of his career reflecting life. We all walk our own paths, and at times we will get to share those paths with those around us. But ultimately, everyone comes and goes at some point. We each are the only people who can fully walk our own path. But just because our paths part doesn't mean that the bonds that we built with those people end. And I think that Reus's career beautifully reflects that. 2016 to 2018 era was not one that was too kind to Reus. In the 15-16 season, he would again find himself losing in the Pokal final, this time on penalties to Bayern Munich, but more so as it was one that was marked with injuries for him. as he missed out on another international tournament, being hurt, this time Euro 2016. And injuries are another aspect of Reus's career that are known widely. It's often said that what would he have achieved if not for them? He still managed quite the career, but 227 games missed through injury is an agonizing number, missing 24 games in the 14-15 season, 16 in the 15-16 season, 42 in the 16-17 season, and 49 in the 17-18 season. And it showed in the club's finishes in the table. The 2014-15 season finishing 7th, 33 points away from first. The 15-16 season finishing second, 10 points off of first. The 16-17 season finishing third, 18 points off of first. And in the 18-19 season finishing fourth, 29 points off of first. To hold that value to your team and to be forced out so many games has to hurt mentally. I feel as though Reus's mental fortitude is really shown here, as to have had so many injuries and to keep fighting back. It's such an achievement. Not only that, but to come back and maintain the quality of your play, as in so many sports, once a major injury strikes, a player may never be the same. I feel like this represents his ability to fight adversity and the setbacks of life. Often so many things beyond our control happen to us, and we can't control every situation. All we can control is how we handle and return from it. Reus showed this variability in the 2016-17 season, as he would miss 42 games, not playing a single game until halfway into November. But he would return, and after another late season injury, play a role in a late season push. In April 2017, Dortmund would visit Bayern in the DFB Pokal semifinals, where Reus would find a goal and an assist to help his team to a 3-2 win that would put them into the Pokal final against Eintracht Frankfurt. Reus would start this game, and although not playing the full match himself, Dortmund would find a 2-1 win, bringing Reus his first major club trophy. It would later be revealed that Reus had suffered a partial cruciate ligament tear, keeping him out for months, not playing again until February and missing 49 games in that season, but he would bounce back. Paired with former Gladbach coach Lucien Favre, Reus would have one of his best seasons of his career in the 2018-19 season. He would score 21 goals and create 13 assists in 36 games, and win the Bundesliga Player of the Season and German Player of the Year. Dortmund even sat in the driver's seat of the Bundesliga with a 7-point lead in the table, and held that position until the 27th match day, where a 5-0 loss saw Bayern take the lead of the league. I remember watching these games, and the Bayern game specifically, and I'll never forget De Hood's early miss against Bayern. That moment always makes me think what could have been. Bayern won that spot and eventually won the league by only 2 points, the closest it had been in their era of dominance. It would be the one that got away, or at least it kind of felt that way until a couple years down the line. But to me, this is an inspiring moment of Reus's career. He got dealt a horrible hand in life, receiving those 2 major injuries, missing so much time, but in being persistent and not giving up on himself or his team, he was able to come back, make a difference, and win his first major trophy at the club. Not only that, but come back and have one of his best seasons of his career. In 2020, Reus would win his 3rd DFB Super Cup, a 2-0 win over Bayern Munich, and then would lose the next one in 2021 3-2 to Bayern Munich. He would win his 2nd DFB Pokal in 2021, a 4-1 win over RB Leipzig, with 2 assists. He put up 31 goal involvements in 41 games in the 21-22 season, losing again in the Super Cup final, and finishing 2nd to Bayern Munich in both. Which leads us to the 2022-2023 season, the latest and greatest of Reus's sufferings. In this season, Dortmund would sort of jump around the table in the first half of the season, sitting at 4th place by the halfway mark, but only 3 points back from top place Bayern. They would go on a 7-game unbeaten run to start the second half of the season, reaching the top of the league, leading Bayern by a point. They would lose to Bayern in the next match day, giving up the top spot, but for the next 8 match days, the 2 teams would often trade positions between the 2 pole positions of the league. By the final match day, Dortmund sat in first with 70 points and Bayern sat in second with 68. All Dortmund had to do was win or get the same result as Bayern. Dortmund hosted 9th place Mainz and Bayern traveled to 10th place Cologne. Disaster struck as Mainz would score twice in the first 25 minutes of the game and Bayern would score in the first 10 minutes of theirs, making Bayern in first place in the live standings. Rafael Guerreiro would pull one back for Dortmund in the 69th minute, but it was looking like they would need help, and help would arrive in the 81st minute as Jan Ljubic of Cologne would strike, tying their game 1-1. Now all Dortmund needed was a goal to win, and they threw everything they had at that goal. And Niklas Süle would score a tying goal in stoppage time, but it wouldn't be enough as Jamal Musiala would score a game and Bundesliga winning goal for Bayern Munich in the 89th minute, killing Dortmund and Reus's title hopes. And so between that and a lukewarm Bundesliga performance, this is why so many of us are pulling for Reus to win the Champions League. It's one last shot at glory for a man who has often come so close and yet been so far from the trophies that he deserves. And looking back through Marco Reus's career, I hope it will build even more respect for him. He is a player I admire so much, as is mentioned so many times. It's not just about picking a club and sticking with it. Declining offers for more promising horizons, even when the ship he was on seemed to be sinking. To double down and see it out, to stay when he was needed most. This is true loyalty. Perseverance. To have life throw problem after problem at you, and to continue forward. He had so many opportunities to quit or give up, and many would have, but he fought his way back consistently. The ability to not be jaded in a world that often does you wrong, to be able to build and maintain bonds no matter how many times those close to you come and go, and to not lose joy in a world of struggle no matter how many setbacks. To tie back into our main theme, I truly think within Reus's career there are many lessons and reflections of life, that at times we have to take a step away from the things that we want to ultimately reach them. Growth from afar, although not always ideal, can pay so many dividends in the long run, which can be seen in his time away from and working his way back to Dortmund. And don't forget the journey itself. We focus sometimes so much on the end goal and the result, at times, when it might not even end the way we want it to. We can see this in his first run to the UCL final. It didn't play out the way we wanted, but there were so many moments and memories created on the pathway there, and that goes for his entire career. He didn't win that many trophies, a lot of the endings weren't what we wanted, but there were so many special moments along the way. There's so much that sits outside of our control. We at times can only exist and navigate within the ebbs and flows of life. We can only do what's in our power to deal with the hand we're dealt, continuing to push forward against the trials of life. Shown through his injury history and even losing so many of those finals, as we said, and coming second so many times, but continuing on. Sometimes the path we want to take is longer than we expect, but so long as we keep pushing towards it, we'll reach it eventually. Reus didn't take any shortcuts to getting a major trophy, but in time he would get one, making it all the more special. And in part that's why I think no matter the ending to his final game with Dortmund, it will continue this trend of life. If he loses, you can suffer through it all, and sometimes you won't get that reward in the end. Life simply isn't easy or fair. But if he wins that crowning moment, the ending I prefer and feel he deserves, it would reveal the value of all that struggle. Joy can't exist without pain, and vice versa, like two sides of a coin. They provide meaning to each other. Reus winning this final trophy in his career would provide the other side of the coin that has been his career of suffering.